Hey guys, this is Sean Waller, also known as Sean Your Realtor.
Yo!
Continue to educate yourself because this business is always evolving. Just continue to learn. With it. Talk to you guys later. There you
How's
go.
that?
What's going on, my brother?
All right.
The camera
All
looks
right.
good.
How are you?
The camera looks good, bro.
Here. Good to be here with you.
Same here,
Nothing
man.
much,
Listen, I
man.
said
How are you?
I had to catch you early. I'm gonna start calling you Podcast Lou going forward.
Man, I'm telling you, you want to know something and no bullshit. This is, I think this is my third one this week.
This week?
Yeah, I did one with Handsome Home Buyer like 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Then I did one with Eric Braun. And then like this week this is my third one.
Wow. That's dope.
Yeah, it's fun, man. It's a lot of fun, but you know what? I'm starting to get a little tired of myself right now.
You never get tired of yourself, man. That means everyone's enjoying what you're putting out. They're enjoying the
I'd like to think so. And that's cool too. You know what? It wasn't always like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was like I had a lot of times where I couldn't get anybody to pick up the phone if I called. And so it's a blessing. You know, it's all good.
Which is it's like the power of social media. So that's actually one of the questions that I have for you. But before we even get into that, let's introduce everyone in my sphere or my, little audience about Lou Soriano.
All right. So my introduction, what you want to know about me?
Yes, sir.
Is okay, gotcha. Now I got you. All right. So Lou Soriano Cfp. I'm a certified financial planner. I wasn't always a certified financial planner. I started out actually as a engineer, biomedical engineer. I worked in the healthcare industry for a long time. And I kind of always had an interest in finance though. So I slowly transitioned from, the engineering or the technical field into finance. And I'd be remiss, and somebody reminded me of saying this the last time they asked me to introduce myself. I went into this whole rap about how I became a financial planner. And I didn't say, hey, I'm married to my wife, my high school sweetheart for
sounds like the wife said that to
years. With kids together. Yeah. So it's like, I'm going to give you a second chance to introduce yourself. So I'm thinking about that now as I'm moving. But so my personal life, that's been very consistent. My professional life, that's changed over the years. But I'm very happy doing what I do. I like helping people. And on the financial planning side, I mostly focus on tax and investments. And by investments, I mean like portfolio planning for retirement and things along those lines.
Okay. Which is cool. So that's actually what I wanted to jump into with my conversation with you, because everything that I'm into is basically financial wealth, right? Like building generational financial wealth, and that comes from a financial planner like yourself. So how would someone even start the process of generating wealth over a long time with a financial planner?
Yeah, okay. I love this question. It comes in various forms, right? But my answer is always the same. Start early. Start early because you can't get time back. You could get money back. You could earn more money. You could make less money. Like a year like 2020, a lot of people got jammed up. They made less rather last year, depending, on the occupation you're in. Some people have been out of work altogether, right? So that's what I mean. Like you could have some years where you make more, some years where you make less. So you can't wait for the perfect time. The time to start is as soon as you can. So because compounding is going to be your best friend. I think it was Albert Einstein who said it's like the eighth wonder of the world, compound interest.
I never heard
so
of that.
Yeah, starting early is the best thing to do. And I find that a lot of people wait until they have X amount of money. Like when I have 10,000 to invest, that's when I'm going to start, or 5,000 or 1,000.
Yeah.
Truth of the matter is most mutual funds, you could start with as little as $50 a month.
Yeah.
just start like that. Even if you're young, working like part-time job, something like that. Like, my kids are and I say kids, they're young adults now. My daughters, I have twin daughters who are 20, and I have my son who's 23. That's when you start. As soon as you start making some money, just start that way. Yeah. And what happens, Sean, is over time, you start learning about these things to the point when you start getting into your 30s, 40s. Now you're a little more sophisticated. And you kind of been around a little bit and a little something about investing. So that's when you're able to even identify opportunities to do things like what you do with, and what some of your clients do, invest in rental properties and things of that nature.
Yeah. And sometimes it all goes to the people that you're around as well. Because if you're around people that's telling you to start investing early, that's when you usually start. Yeah. I really didn't start doing anything with even like retirement until I met my wife. Honestly, like retirement.
Okay.
Because we never think about death, right? Even life insurance. I didn't have life insurance until I met my wife, and she was like, "Listen, if something happens to you, you want to make sure that your family's okay." Right. So
So listen, man, it sounds like you're a very blessed man because your wife she straightened you right out. It sounds
right out, bro.
All right.
I had to give her a shout out too. I had to sneak the shout out in there a little bit too.
Hey man, if you don't do that, you're in trouble. Once these things air, there's no do-overs. So you gotta be out, shout the kids out, everybody. Get that all in there.
Shout out to Zoe. Shout out to my 2-year-old. She'll be 3 this month.
She's beautiful. I see her on Instagram when you post her, and again, you're blessed. You're blessed. Thank God.
I appreciate it. Speaking of Instagram, great segue, because that's how you and I got introduced to each other. So what actually got Lou Soriano into the social media? Because I'm not trying to age you. Trust me, I'm not trying to age you, my man. But sometimes you can't teach an old
52,
dog new
proud
tricks.
to say it. I'm 52. Yeah, I'm definitely, I was telling my wife a little earlier, I'm the old man of Instagram, right? Because I feel like that's a young man's game. But what got me into social media and Instagram specifically was 2020, COVID. What my first video was, and I want to say it's coming up on a year, by the way. I got to look at my timeline, but I remember feeling like, oh shit, this is like something very serious. Like this is like like the world is shifting right now. Like, and you think back to March and April of last year, we were terrified to step outside our house, touch a doorknob. We thought like if we caught this thing, we're dead, right?
Yeah.
At the same time, I was speaking with some people, and I knew that they were going to be out of work. There's people out there, Sean, and this. They work week to week. They work check to check. And when you're talking about, people of color, I happen to be Hispanic. I'm Puerto Rican. It's a different culture. So sometimes when you have people who are depending on this money week to week, it becomes tough if you're out of work for any length of time. Let's put it that way.
One check could mean a lot. That could set you back for months.
Is a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. So when I started hearing about the stimulus programs coming out, when I started hearing about, the tax filing deadline being extended, when I started hearing about people who did not file their return yet in order to be eligible, because that's what we thought had to take place to get stimulus money, I was just thinking about people I knew. I was thinking about clients that I had, and I was thinking about, how could I most effectively, rather than picking up the phone or sending out some mass email that most people would not read, I made a video, and then a video became another one. Every time there was an update on stimulus or any of these programs, I'd make another video.
Nice.
And that's how I got started on Instagram, social media.
And I noticed that, and I said, he's bringing it from a true space, because you never really asked anyone for their business back. Like you were just giving out the content or giving out free game, like I like to say. And
that's what I loved about you. That's what I loved about you. I was drawn to you right away, because, and I was asking Matt, mutual friend of ours, Matt, our visual.
Shout out to Matt.
Shout out Matt. Yeah, big time. So I remember Matt telling me, hey, you got to meet Sean. And And I said, yeah, I'm following this guy. And I like what he's doing. What you were doing was different too, Sean. You were doing like, listen, we could all promote ourselves, our business in your field, your latest listing, your latest sale. You weren't doing that. You were doing, hey, I'm Sean, and you want to know how to buy a house? Here's how to do it. Yeah. Instead of spending that tax refund on X, Y, and Z, save it. You could put money down. This is how an FHA loan works. I was like, wow, I'm digging this. This is exactly, that's the lane I was on, so I saw that in you as well. And so that's right. That's what I was using the platform for, much like yourself.
Yeah, same here. I said I was going to start doing videos the way I talk to my friends, because at the beginning, I didn't know what to do with social media. I started in the same thing, 2020, because I was never a guy that liked to be in front of the camera. Like this shit used to like spook me out,
Me too.
I was like, you know what? I gotta put it out there, because like you said, a lot of people, especially people of our ethnicity and background, we don't get a lot of the information up front. Like our parents probably pretty much didn't teach it to us. We didn't get it in school. And we're always glued to our phone. So why not get the information from someone that looks like us, that talks like us? And that's usually when we pick it up a little bit quicker. So that's why I started my journey on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, truth be told, financial literacy across the board is kind of low, right? I mean, a lot of people, even young professionals now, I don't care what your ethnicity, your background, religion, race, color, there's a lot to be learned about that. This is the kind of stuff that is not taught in school.
Yeah.
You don't take, mutual funds 101 in high school, or asset allocation in high school, or taxes 101 in college. It's just stuff like, okay, you're taught about your career, perhaps. You get your license in something or a designation in something, and then you're off and running, right? That's your career. Then as you're earning money, you start to
blow it. You start to blow it fast.
Start to blow it, and you start to say, oh, why do I owe $5,000 this year in taxes? And what should I do with this mutual fund or retirement plan? I don't know, what investments to pick. And I'll just say, 25% down the board.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, there's better ways of doing it. So that's exactly right. So we have to speak to that. And when you're talking about people of color, keep it 100, as they say. It's even less. So it's important to provide this kind of information out there.
Yeah. It's like get it in one hand and it goes out the other one, which is so
right.
It's just such a negative way to go through life in general, because most people can't retire. Right. They like you said, they don't start early. So they're working until they're 60s, 70s sometimes, or sometimes until that last breath, which is a scary thing.
It is.
And so speaking about taxes, right? So we're in tax season now. And growing up the way where I grew up in the inner city, right? So everyone was like, oh, I have dependents. I had all these dependents I could claim on my taxes. And they always thought like that was the biggest come up.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember having a friend. He actually owned a few trucks. He had a trucking business, and I told him one year that I was getting X amount of dollars back on my taxes. He said, "You're doing something wrong, bro. I'm trying not to pay taxes." He said, "If you're getting something back, you're doing something wrong." So, what is just to give people a little more information about like depreciation and deductions on their taxes, and just an overall idea on how that works.
Okay, so number one is the one thing I find that's a struggle for me every tax season is exactly what you just described, right? You could have two people working at the same job, same employer, same pay, same kids, both own a house, something along those lines. But you don't know what the spouse makes. Maybe the spouse doesn't work at all. Maybe one of the kids went to college, so they got college credits. So there's so many things that are baked into a tax return, number one, that could make the outcomes very different for two people that seem like they're on, the same economic level or salary level. So that's the first thing I'll say. Second thing I'll say, I am not a big fan of big refunds, because for the reason you just said, you're better off using that money throughout the year. Why get back $5,000 in February and March, and just, you kind of ball out and all the money
you go
is
into the
gone,
Gucci store.
right?
You go to the Gucci store,
right?
You get a new car,
Why do that when you could have an extra 600 a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, let's assume all things could work out in a perfect world where you don't owe or don't get anything back at tax time, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's that. And then there's this other third part that a lot of people do not understand, and that's the credits. So there are some people who are eligible, and I'll use the earned income credit as an example. And I'll start with that one. I got a couple of things in my mind, but I'll start with the earned income credit. If you have income that's below a certain threshold, you could basically get back 100%. Let's say they withheld $2,000 in federal tax. You're going to get the $2,000 back, and then you're going to get what's called credits. In this case, economic earned income credit, where they say, hey, because you got kids, you got children, you're making under a certain threshold, we're going to give you a credit of $2,000 per child. So that's why when you hear some of these big refunds, right, it's like, oh man, this guy got back $6,000, $8,000. Well, maybe only $2,000 were actual refund, right? Because by definition, refund means you paid something and you got it back.
Yeah, you overpaid
a portion of it back.
Mm-hmm.
The credits are like, hey, because you made under a certain threshold, you get all this back. So now you go talk to this guy, and it's like, hey, I want to talk to your accountant because he got you back 8,000. I got 1,500. So I want to see your guy. It's different, bro. It's different for everybody, every situation. It's not clear cut, but that's why I like to talk about taxes so much, because investments are something that, I could talk about that all day too, but not everybody is in a position to invest, but we all have to pay taxes. So if you know how to limit that, or you understand that, maybe you could re-engineer it where you're not paying so much. Or if you are getting these big refunds, well, rather than blowing it, maybe use that, repurpose it for something else.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And I want to catch up with something that you spoke about. I think it was with Handsome. You were talking about Justin. And I said, I admire this so much about Lou, because most parents wouldn't do this. How you were saying that you basically encouraged him to listen. If you want to do this now, this whole independent route that you want to go, do that shit now. Don't do it half-assed. Go all in.
Yeah,
and that's dope, because most parents they're gonna tell you, graduate high school, go to college, find a job for 30 years, and retire.
That was me.
Yeah.
Sean, that was me, man. So when I speak about my son and my daughters and what I'm encouraging them to do, and telling them at a young age to take that chance now, like my son, Justin, realtor, just like yourself. Mm-hmm. It's a tough profession. I admire what you guys do. I love the hustle of the realtors, what you guys do. It's just a different animal, right? But I'm telling them, hey, do it now while you're young. You got my full support. You're not married. You don't have kids. Because, it could take a couple of years to see if this thing is actually going to gain any traction, right?
Exactly.
So that's when you got to do it. If you go get it, you could always get a job, Sean. Mm-hmm. You cannot always start a business.
Very true.
You can. I want to take that back.
Yeah, you can.
I don't want to put that out there. So I'm going to grab that back, right? You can. You can start at any age. I was just watching the movie The Founder last night with my wife, and
that's the McDonald's story, right?
McDonald's at 52 years old. So you could start at any time. So I take that back. It's easier, obviously, if you start young.
Yeah, no responsibilities.
No bills,
really. Yeah, of course.
That's the time to do it. So I encourage him, because honestly, I didn't have that confidence young in life. I didn't have that guidance young in life. I don't want to say I didn't have the support, because I did. I always had a mom and dad, came from a great family. My brother and I grew up, we didn't have everything we wanted, but we had everything we needed. Mm-hmm. Always had food on the table. My mom and dad made sure of that. We have a very close-knit family. But at the same time, their experiences were different. So they could only give me what they had, right?
Exactly.
I'm trying to give my kids what I have. And hopefully every generation that increases,
going
right?
on and
that
on.
changes.
Yeah. And that's how it's supposed to be.
That's what it was. Yeah.
I actually, when I started real estate, I straddled the line for years, for doing it part-time and having a full-time job. So I was like hustling nonstop. I would leave the house at 8 in the morning. I wouldn't get home sometimes to 10, 11 o'clock at night. Then my wife said, you can't keep doing this. Right.
It's hard.
And even after a while, after a while, I said, I can't do this. I'm going to have to go all in. And of course, I decided for 2020 to be my year to go all in.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
2020 was my first year full time.
Oh man, God bless you. So I got to sit you down one day. We gotta talk, because there's just, I want to be on the other side. I have a habit I've noticed of these podcasts where I start hijacking it. And I started interviewing the person interviewing me. That happened with Charles Weinrod.
I saw that.
Yeah. And I literally told him during the interview, I said, I want to sit you down and talk to you. He's like, all right, let's go. I said, all right, turn that camera back on. We switched positions and I interviewed him. But, it sounds like you have a pretty amazing story yourself. And I
won't go too much into detail on it. Maybe I'll wait for you to sit me down. But I was literally fired on my day off. You ever saw the movie Friday when Craig got fired on his day off? Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hit the ground running. January 2020 was my first full year. Things were going.
Wow.
COVID hit, shut me down. And I'm the type of guy that likes to save. So I don't spend money because I'm used to that. I grew up not really having much. So I refused to spend it. 2020, realtors, we couldn't go out, we couldn't do any showings.
Nothing.
My wife was considered essential because she works in a hospital.
Okay.
So I was home with a 2-year-old for 4 months. So I kind of say 2020 was like a refresh for me because I didn't really spend enough time with my little one when I was out, like always grinding, and she actually was she helped me get in front of the camera because I would just use her.
Oh, that's good.
As like my anchor to get in front of the camera. So that was my 2020. I won't go too much. I won't go too crazy.
No, please. By all means, I'm all ears. So compliment to you is I would not have known that. You are like, and I know I'm listening carefully to what you're saying. You were doing this a little bit as like on the side and you had a day job and that kind of thing. And we've all been there, but I would have thought you've been doing this a lot longer based on your professionalism, based on the way you carry yourself, based on the videos and just, from the position of like giving that you come from because of the free game thing, right? Like, you're educating and stuff like that. So I would have thought you're doing this for years. So
no, it hasn't been that long. Yeah, it was an interesting journey. We'll sit down. Me and you'll sit down and get into it.
Yeah, man. I would love that.
Yeah. And when I was, and I'm just going to kind of segue into another one, because when I was doing it part-time and full-time, I was actually putting all my funds into the same account. Until after a while, my CPA was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're making a certain amount of money. Why don't you have an LLC?
Right.
I was going to the box, the box tax refund places for a while.
Yeah.
Until I got a professional CPA that put me on the right track.
That changes everything.
Changes the whole game. So, but just to give people a little more, because I actually do have clients that 2020 started a interesting journey for a few people that I know. So I have a client right now, 2020 started. She was working at like a daycare, got laid off. She has small children as well, and she couldn't find masks for her kids. Because at a certain age, they come off their face. They're really not too secure.
Right.
So she started to make masks just for her family and her father, because the father was elderly. He wore them. He started wearing them to work, and she got this huge work order, like a purchase order, to make all these masks. So she didn't know what to do. She got like a $20,000 check for it. She didn't know what the hell to do with it. And she asked me recently, she was like, should I start an LLC or should I start an S Corp? And I don't really know the difference between the two. Well, I know the difference, but I try not to give too much information on it.
Yeah.
So if she's listening to us now, can you give her a little more information on what's the difference between an LLC and an S Corp?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to, because this is something I kind of beat like a drum. And I made a series of videos like that are on my Instagram. Please don't go and watch them because I think they're terrible. I think the information was good, but I was just all over the place at the time. I was using a cell phone. They weren't well made, I guess I could say, but the information is good.
Information. That's all it's about.
That's all I'd say about. Right. So I say that kind of in jest, but difference between an LLC and an S corp, Sean, is really it's how you're taxed, right? So an LLC is a limited liability company. So I tell people, if you're just making $20,000, you might not even need the LLC, but it's nice to have because two reasons. One, you're holding yourself out there to somebody as like, I took the extra step and, now I'm Lou Soriano Financial Services LLC, right? So it seems like, okay, you got a real business. You seem legitimate. Two, sometimes depending on the vendor you're working for or the broker you're working for, or whoever you're doing business with, they don't want to pay somebody personally. They want to pay somebody. They want to pay a business.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. But an LLC is not taxed any differently than a sole proprietor, unless that LLC makes an S corp election, which is Form 2553.
Okay.
So bear with me. I don't want to get off of the track and I don't want to get into the weeds. LLC is good for somebody who, let's say you're an Uber driver or a DoorDash. Like imagine you're an Uber driver, you're driving somebody somewhere and then an accident occurs. Well, if you weren't structured as an LLC, they could sue you personally, right?
That's interesting, really.
If you're an LLC, they can only go after the assets of the LLC, not you.
Wow.
So the number one reason why you should have an LLC is for liability protection. Really, that's it.
Okay.
It's not going to help you for taxes unless you make the S corp election. And when do you do that? Well, once you start having net income of like $40,000 or more. And by net, I mean you made $60,000, had $20,000 of expenses. Now you got 40 grand or so, right? Or more. That's when it makes sense to be taxed as an S corp, because there's a thing called self-employment tax. And that's 15.3%. So if you are not structured as an S corp, all of that net income is subjected to not only federal tax, but state tax and then self-employment tax. When you're an S corp, you could carve out a part of your income that is subjected to those three: federal, state, and self-employment tax. And then the rest of the income is just federal and state. You don't have to pay the 15.3%. Yeah. So now when you start making, let's say you had net income of 100,000, just going to use an easy number. Mm-hmm. Doesn't have to be 100. Don't trip on the number. I'm just using the easy number. Self-employment tax on 100,000 is 15 grand, right? Mm-hmm. So, and if it was half that, 50,000, it's 7,500. So this is like real money when you start making money. You see what I'm saying? Even at 50,000, let's use 50. That's more realistic, right? For somebody starting out or somebody in the business for a couple of years. 50,000. Well, shit, if I could avoid paying $7,500 in tax or even half of that, set me up as an S corp. I'm going to save some money that way. So those are the differences. It's more about the tax treatment than it is anything else. And on the liability side, both offer liability protection. So depending on the type of work you do, depending on the type of income you make, that's when you want to start looking at it.
Will it also help with like deductions as far as like home office?
Yes.
Like things like that.
Man,
as well,
you're
right?
good.
I'm telling you, I'm trying to learn. I'm watching the videos, man. I'm
no,
watching the
you're
whiteboard
good.
videos, bro. I'm
you know what it is? No, but I talk so damn much. Sometimes I say, man, let me be quiet. I don't want to get into it. So I'm thanking you for teeing up all these great questions, and then I'm gonna try to knock it out the park for you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So a big thing about 2020. Let's talk about 2020, right? So many people are working from home. But if you're an employee, W-2 employee, you cannot deduct home office expenses. Hate to break the news to a lot of people that are working from home now, which are more and more people. If you're self-employed, you have an LLC, you have an S corp, you have to have self-employment income, by the way, to set these up. You can't be like W-2 employee and say, well, I'm an LLC and then I'll write it off. Don't work that way.
Yeah.
But yes, you do have the ability to deduct more things than you would as an individual. Listen, our tax system is set up for business, guys. It's not set up for individuals. Individuals pay the most tax. You look at these big corporations like Amazon or Walmart and whatever. I don't want to put all of them out there, but and we hear about it in the newspaper and in the news all the time, right? They pay
That's
no
why
tax.
not to cut you off and not to get political or when that whole story came out about Trump with the $750, I think, in taxes, when
Right.
everyone was upset, I was like, that's fucking genius.
in a way, it is, and the reason why is because, well, most of his income is generated from real estate. Real estate you're allowed to depreciate. Not to get into the weeds here, but depreciation just means it has a useful life for tax purposes. We all know real estate appreciates over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for tax purposes, you could deduct a portion of it every year, whether you had, any expenses towards that property or not, which most times you do too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by the time you deduct operating expenses and this depreciation, that is just like kind of a deduction given to you for being in that type of, business. Yeah, you could very possibly get your income down to zero. So, and that's what corporations do.
Yeah,
and that's what businesses do. So yeah, setting up a business and having some kind of business, the tax rules, it's like night and day. There's rules for individuals, and then there's rules, I'm trying to get it all on camera. Rules for individuals, very narrow things you could do and deduct, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, oh, you're a business. Well, you got this whole lane here to work off of, and that's really what it is. So yeah, big benefits for being in business for yourself.
Yeah, that's why I encourage people all the time. I say, if you got a side hustle, I know that it sounds good to have the cash in hand all the time, right? Like people want the tax-free money, but it's bigger than that. If you have a business, like you could do way more with that cash.
Yes,
just because you can't really even do anything. You can't put it in the bank. You have to account for it at some point.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And Sean, this happened to me. And I was listening to an interview with, believe it or not, Candy Burris. Do you know who she is from Housewives of Atlanta?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm watching, I forget who she was on. It was a podcast. I'm listening to podcast. Last year, I didn't even know what a podcast was.
Same here.
I've been on 3 of them this week alone. And
that's why I'm telling you, I got to catch you early. I'm about to get an autograph before I turn on the TV and I see you on Fox Business or Squash Box or something.
No,
man.
No. This is all good. I like chopping it up with people like you. But I was listening to Candy Burris. Let me get back on track here. So on her podcast, when she was being interviewed, and she said you should always have a side business, but you shouldn't treat your side business like a side business. And when I heard her say that, and it's like, listen, people look at some of these reality stars and say what you want about them, but Candy is not one to play with, right? She's never been career. Mm-hmm. She's a singer-songwriter, Grammy winner, multiple businesses, restaurants. So like, yeah, okay, she might be on some hokey show, Housewives of Atlanta, but she's not typical reality star. So that struck a nerve with me because for many, many, many years, I had some self-doubt, and I kept my day job and had this little side gig going because I didn't have the confidence to go full time. See what I'm saying? So when you're going back and asking about my son, that's why I'm saying you're smarter than you know, and it's easier than you think. Mm-hmm. I kept thinking like maybe I wasn't good enough, or these other guys got a leg up on me, or they're smarter than me. So, when I was talking to Handsome Homebuyer on that podcast and we laughed, and I really thought about afterwards, I said, I really have done a lot of things. Why did I do so many things in life? And part of it is, honestly, I could laugh about it now. I probably didn't have all that confidence at that time. Mm-hmm. So before I went out and told people I'm going to help you with investments, well, I want to know about investment and taxes. Well, if I'm going to help you with investment and taxes, I want to know about insurance too. And you know what? I need to know about mortgages because people buy houses. It makes sense, though. Listen, now it makes sense. Helped me today. I feel so well-rounded, and I can speak with anybody about these things, right? But for a long time, I didn't have the confidence. So coming back, if you get involved in something, even if it's a side gig, believe in it wholeheartedly. I want people to do that. I want people to, even though it's a side thing, don't treat it as a side thing. Treat it as something that could develop into something, because it can. Yeah. And once it does, it's life-changing. So, and just constantly, just keep investing in that side business, though. As you get, just keep putting money into it while you're doing the day job. So when
the day job, like if you're like me and you're fired on your day off, you can always jump into the side
Right.
business and you wouldn't have any issues.
Right. And learn and educate yourself. That's the other thing,
Mhm.
you know. But you could do too much of that too, Sean. And that's what I did. I was like so busy, like after I got this designation, all right, I want to learn this and I want to get this license and I want to know about that. I'm so busy learning. I'm not doing. You know what
Mhm.
I mean?
Mhm.
I'm over here learning all this stuff and getting skills, but I wasn't really active.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for being young and active and, you know, analysis by paralysis, right? You're just getting older and you're letting years go by. Like I said, first thing I said, time is the one thing you can't get back. So you
Can't get
got
it
to
back.
start early,
You cannot get
no
it
matter
back.
what it is.
And once you miss that
Mhm.
opportunity, sometimes it's hard to go back to that, especially
It
when you start
is.
getting more responsibility in your life. It's tough. Like I have a
It
mortgage.
is.
Like no, the old Sean prior to me getting laid off would have been more nervous because I have the mortgage. I'm married. I have a kid. But my
Right.
biggest fear, Lou, was not reaching my potential.
Yeah.
That was my biggest fear because I watched my mom go through it, and she stayed at a job that she hated for years. She
Yep.
hated it, and she never took
Mhm.
advantage of the opportunities that came in front of her when she had those opportunities. So for anyone,
Right.
you know, the young guys out there, like Lou said, go for it, especially if you have a strong support system and your
Yeah.
family's holding you down, just go for it. That's a little free game.
Especially if you have that. And even if you don't, Sean, you know, and that's something I think, you know, we never met personally, right? Can we say that?
No,
We never
that
met
person.
like in person,
Mhm.
but we've spoken many times. But for whoever's listening to this, I want to make this clear. That doesn't matter. I saw something in Sean. He saw something in me. We became friends through Instagram. I support Sean. Sean supports
Yes,
me.
sir.
Next thing you know, Matt's putting up a video. Who's another friend of ours? You know,
Well, shout out to Mike
that's the
Titino. We
way.
ain't shout Mike out. Shout out to my guy
Mike
Mike.
Titino. Well, listen, this is the Hustle Squad, right?
Yeah,
That's
yes,
us.
sir.
It's us four,
We're getting the
right?
shirts printed up, by the way, too. Thanks for
Yeah,
Hanson
yeah,
for
we're
the
gonna do
idea.
something. I actually got something in the works already. So
Nice.
you know
Me and Matt was
coming out
working on it
soon.
too.
Oh, okay, good. But my point is this: you could support. So we're saying especially if you have that support. Now, families, there's nothing like family support. It's nothing like having financial support. But you could support people in other ways, like,
Oh.
yo, I saw that video you made. I liked it. I'm gonna share it, right?
Mhm.
Or you know, I could come to you. And like I said, even though we haven't met face to face, man to man, if I put out a video or something like that, I'm like, Sean, you know, I was like a little second guessing myself. What you think of that? You know, I would, I know just from our interactions, you would tell me what you thought. You know,
Yeah.
I thought it was all right. The other one was better, but I'm like, all right, good. That's what I need to know. Why? So I could build, you know what I mean? So that's also support. And you need to surround yourself with people like that who are willing to support you in your dream.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so what's next for Mr. Lou Soriano? What is the next 2-3 years going to show? Besides you being on Fox Business and all that stuff, we know what's happening. Bestseller, like the books is coming.
Man.
I want front seats at the conference. I'm going to be there, bro. I'm here to support the whole way.
No, it's nothing. It's you know, truth be told, and I said it kidding around when we started this, like that. I said I'm getting tired of myself. You know, I just want to help as many people as possible. I'm not looking to do anything more than what I'm doing now. I'm very happy with my life where I'm at right now. My goal is to help my kids over these next 3, 4, 5 years. I got, you know, young adults at home in their 20s, and these are the formative years. So if I'm busy out here trying to, you know, like we're saying, kidding around, get on Fox News or this or that and the other, I'm not focusing on now, if that came my direction, don't get me wrong, right? I'm not looking for that though. That's what I'm saying. So I'm kind of like, I always tell my kids, like, I want to go like this, you know, I want to evolve. I always want to be moving up, but I'm not looking to blow up. You know what I mean? I'm fine. Just listen, if I never got another client, if I never got any more business, but you told me what I have now will remain constant for from now until the day I die, I'm good. You know what I mean? So I'm good there. I want to help more people. That's what I want to do. So
now, do you have more people reaching out to you?
You help people. You do make more money too.
Of course. Of course.
So it works
Especially when
that
people
way
see it's
too.
coming from a genuine place. Like I said, you're not asking for the business, right? So you're basically giving them free knowledge, and they're gonna slowly gravitate towards you in the long run.
Right.
Have you
Right.
started to see like an uptick in business since you started posting on social media?
I have, and that was another question somebody had asked me, like, I was on Josh Handler. He was very good too. Like you real estate guys are naturals at all of this stuff, by the way.
I'm like sweating. I'm sweating over here.
Yeah, nah, you're good. You're good. You're a star. So Josh asked me, I believe, something along those lines, like, "Hey, have you seen like an uptick in business?" And I said, I have. Honestly, I have. But I can't say like, I'm not measuring, I'm not quantifying this, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not saying, oh, since I started on Instagram or since this last video, I got 3 or more calls, and then like one of them turned into a client and I made X amount from it. So I'm not measuring it
Okay.
at all. And at all. I'm not measuring at all. But I don't know how to describe it, Sean. It's just like, when something's working out, it's
Mhm.
working out. It's sort of like, it is working out, and I have seen some new business as a result of it, but I'm not quantifying it, and that's okay. And maybe that's because I keep saying like, because I feel like I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll tell you this. I started with 35 followers on Instagram, March 2020.
Which it's hard for me to believe that you really started with 35 followers, really, until you started doing the videos, and then it just took off from there.
But bro, check it. So out of the 35, probably 20 of them were family, where I'm hitting them up. And, I'm like, listen, I'm starting a business Instagram. I don't want to look like so lame over here. Please follow my Instagram, right? Then it became so that out of the 35, I'm serious. And I'm not even joking. I think 20 were family, right? Might have had to pay for 5 of them. No, I'm only kidding. And then the other were just friends and stuff like that. And then it just grew from there. But all of the people that I have on Instagram are just, and listen, I don't got that many. It's 900, which is like nothing compared to what some people have.
It's only been a year, right? You said, when did you officially start your Instagram? Right around the pandemic? That's when you started Instagram itself?
March 2020. My first video was to all the people out there who haven't filed a tax return, but you need your refund because you're out of work. This was my first video. Wow. Call me. Like, I'll do your tax return. I might have even offered to do it. Kind of like, I'll do it if you don't have the money to pay for your tax preparation. You could pay me when you get your refund. That was literally, I think, one of my first videos. I gotta find it. And then I made a couple of real bad ones talking about stimulus and stuff, because I wasn't talking in my natural voice like I am with you today, right? I was like, oh man, I'm going to talk about this. And I felt like a reporter. I was like, hey, it's Lou Soriano Cfp with an update on today's stimulus. I was like, man, I don't talk like that. That's not me, So I got comfortable over time. But I might have even deleted some of those videos because they were so bad. You got to
keep those. You got to archive them or something.
I'm sure I have them somewhere. And you know what? After this discussion, I might find one of those bad ones or what I thought was really bad and put it back up just to show, like, it does take time. Like you were saying too, you were uncomfortable doing this, right?
Oh, I remember my first
time to get comfortable.
It was the worst. It was the worst.
No, you're very good, Sean. I watched your videos. I was immediately, attracted to like your energy, I just felt like, man, this guy is like talking about difference between buying and renting and why that's so important, why it's so important, to do this over that. I was like, man, this guy, I was like, Matt, you follow this guy? He goes, yeah, I'm actually making these videos with this guy. He's like, you got to meet him. He's good dude. You guys are similar, and and here we are.
Yeah, so, here we are. Hustle Squad.
Hustle Squad. Yeah, man.
Now, I also wanted to touch base because you mentioned something on Hanson. I'm gonna keep just referring back to Hanson's interview, but you mentioned that people shouldn't take money from their 401k to purchase a home.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you?
Yeah,
I know why you're gonna say why you say that, but can you just give me a little more elaborate on that?
Yeah. So, shout out to Handsome Homebuyer too. he runs a clip every day from that podcast we had. I feel like, there's about 10 of them now, but I'm very appreciative of everything he did. So shout out to Mr. Handsome Homebuyer. But yeah, I'm not a fan of taking money out of retirement plans almost for any reason. One of the few exceptions, Sean, is to purchase a house. And that's because I feel like that is in some respects another investment. And I'm going to put that word investment in quotation, because I don't mean it's an investment like, yeah, you put money in, because Charles and I had this, discussion too on his podcast. Your home should not be considered necessarily an investment because of a lot of reasons, right? But I'm not a fan of taking money out of retirement accounts unless you really need to, because it can change your family's life. It could change your life. It could change the next generation. So it's a good reason to do it. But if you are going to take money out, Sean, I tell people to take it out in the form of a loan, not a distribution. Because if you take out, and this is a real case with real numbers, I had a client who was referred to me take out $75,000 from their retirement plan at work, didn't claim it on their tax return. They didn't understand the ins and outs because they thought since tax was withheld that they were good. Long story short, they got to pay back like $25,000 of that in taxes, right? That's just federal taxes. We didn't even figure out state yet. You're losing the appreciation by keeping that money in the market or in whatever you had it invested in your 401k. So you're losing that over time, right? So distributions, I'm not a big fan of. You're going to get taxed on it. First $10,000 from an IRA, not a 401k, is another distinction people don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that as well.
Yeah, if you take it from an IRA, there is an exception for the first 10 grand. They'll let you take that out without a premature distribution penalty, which is 10%. But you still got to pay federal and state tax, right? If you take it from a retirement plan, there is no $10,000 exemption for this, right? So the whole thing becomes taxable. A better way to do it, if you're gonna do it, is to take out a loan, borrow the $75,000 in this example, right? You don't pay any tax. There's no penalty to worry about, no nothing. But you do have to pay yourself back with interest. Usually the interest is very low. And, you get to put the money back into your own account. So you're really borrowing against yourself and there's no tax consequence. So if you're going to do it for a house, that's the way I recommend doing it. I don't recommend the distribution part at all. And even borrowing against it, I kind of discourage it. In other words, if you need another 20 grand to get you to that point where you got a 20% down payment, let's say, for example, I love it. Do it, right? Small amount, get you to 20%, do away with PMI, and it's a small amount, relatively speaking, to pay back. Taking out 100 grand and that's your down payment, it's like, well, maybe you weren't ready.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I understand that. So you're not totally against it in general. You're just saying basically, like kind of be smart about it.
You got to know all the rules, just like we were talking about taxes. You need to educate yourself and you need to know all the rules, all the ins and outs, and then make a sound financial decision, because a lot of people, like we were talking about with tax refunds, right? Oh, my friend said he just took money out of his retirement account. Why let it sit there? I don't need it for 30 years. I could use it to buy my house right now, and the market's hot and the interest rates are low. So I'm going to take this money here and put it here. Okay, but are you aware you could do it this way too? And here's another option, and here's another option. So that's what I say. I'm not for it. And I'm not always against it, but you should really do some analysis and determine what's the right way to do it.
Okay.
Then you go into it knowing what the deal is.
Okay. All right. I can respect it. I can respect it.
What about you? You're a fan of it?
If you need it for like certain situations, like you said, if you need extra $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for your closing costs, I say go for it. And like you said, in the form of a loan, definitely do it in the form of a loan, because that is, you're paying yourself back. I'm against when I see people go into their retirement and they think it's like a bank account. I mean, not a bank account, like a piggy bank. Because I know
Yeah.
people that are bought, they'll take money out, pay it off, then take it right back out again.
Take it out again. No, I
Yeah.
know. Because listen, the first time people are hesitant, and this is the other reason why I say that, Sean. First time people do it, they're like, oh, I don't know. And they take a little out. Then they say, wow, that was so
That was
easy.
easy. I just had to click a button and now I got a $30,000 check in the mail.
I'm going to do it again. Now,
Mhm.
I want you guys to, well, and I say you guys, whoever happens to be listening to this, to understand one thing. Uncle Sam wants people to start taking this money out. Be clear. Every time you take it out, you're paying tax. And, federal government's looking at how much money is compiled in retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, you name it, right? And they're saying, man, there's so much money sitting there on the sideline. Like, it would be nice to get some of that
To get some of
tax
that
money,
back.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's grown tax deferred. So they changed the law 2 years ago that if you inherit money, you got to take all that money out within 5 years. They used to let you stretch it out over your life expectancy. So that's changed.
Really?
And they're saying now, because of COVID, there's new rules where you could take it out, spread the tax over 3 years. If you had a corona related distribution, they're calling it, right? So you lost your job, you had to tap into 401k. You can say, listen, we're not going to bang you up and you got to pay all the tax in 1 year. You can spread it over 3 years. And oh, by the way, we're going to get rid of that 10% early distribution penalty. There's discussion that they might do more of that, where they say, you know what? If it became easier for people to kind of raid or take out money from their retirement account for home improvement, home purchases, paying off debt, well, we would start getting our tax money, we being federal government saying this, right? And maybe we can let them spread it over 3 years or 5 years so they don't feel it as much, but, we're going to be able to start getting this revenue sooner. Problem with that is a lot of people are going to get into that trap. They're going to get used to doing that. And then 20, 30 years are going to go by and they're going to realize that was like a revolving credit, right? And they don't have this money to retire on. So yeah, that's why it's the other reason why I discourage it.
Yeah,
it gets
I understand that. I see it all the time. It's absolutely crazy. I see people do it all the time. All right. I'm trying to think what.
And you probably, I want to just say one other thing. You probably get a lot of people, because you're a smart guy, and you probably have a lot of people who come to you for advice too, right? Like I noticed that's the case with many people. Once you're doing one thing and you're doing something positively, like people assume about like all these things, right? So they come to you for advice. Like, I'm good at what I do, but I had somebody ask me about like student loan debt today, and I'm like, well, that's not really my wheelhouse. Or have another woman asking me about like, she's leasing a car, and it was like the resale value. I was like, listen, I'm not in the car, but you start fielding all these questions, right? Because people figure, hey, if you know about this and that, but it's everything. Good to be that person that people see you that way, right? And I know they do with you too. And I know they do because I hear the kind of things you talk about, and even in this interview, what you're saying,
Yeah, I'm always the guy that gets the phone calls. Hey, what do you think about? What about this? What about? I'm like, I don't know. I couldn't tell you anything about that. But I do get a lot of questions, and I don't know if this is really a realm, but it's more of a, like life insurance, for instance. I have a lot of people who think their job, the life insurance that they receive from work is real life insurance, as a real policy. And I'm telling them that's not a real policy. You have to invest in life insurance.
Yeah. So Sean, this is such a good topic. And I want to give a shout out to, it's so funny because my boy, Kevin Span, right? I was going to call him my man, Kevin Span, but he's the insurance guru on Instagram. So if you look up Insurance Guru on Instagram, he and I had this discussion a few times. He owns an Allstate business in Nassau County. And we talked about this. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal probably in June or something like that. And they were talking about how people of color, were affected by COVID and didn't have life insurance. They only had like life insurance through their job. And if you were laid off or you lost your job due to COVID, well, some people went without this insurance. So to your point is, and I told Kevin, and Kevin, if you're listening to this, you got to start making videos on life insurance because there's a lot of confusion out there. To your point, Sean, people think if I have life insurance through my job, I'm good. Well, depends. Usually it's just 1 year's salary that you're covered for. And again, I'm just going to use that $100,000 number because it's just easy, right? 100,000 might not be enough for a lot of people.
Usually not.
You know what I mean? You're going to get $100,000, but you owe 300 on your mortgage. Not enough, right? You leave your job, you quit your job, you get fired from your job. You don't have that coverage anymore. So you have to supplement that. And for most people, and you know, I'll refer to Kevin Spann, the insurance guru, to commentate on this. And I'm hoping he makes the videos to make the case for this.
I may have to call Kevin. I may have to get Kevin on here.
You got to get Kevin on here. I'm gonna get Kevin on here.
I have some questions for Kevin. Definitely.
Get Kevin on here. I highly recommend you do that. And he could speak to it. I'm life insurance licensed too. It's not something I do a heck of a lot of, but I'm a big fan of term insurance. And the reason is this: it's fairly inexpensive. You get the amount of coverage you need. If you're a young professional, just starting your career, just starting your business, you could get a heck of a lot of insurance for a pretty low premium. So no bells and whistles here. It's not going to be a savings account. You're not going to put your kids through college with this thing. You're not going to pay it for 10 years and then it pays for itself. Those are other permanent policies and they have their place, not knocking them. But I would rather see somebody have term insurance for $500,000, $1 million, pay a couple $100 a year in premium, hear me, and you're covered. You know what I mean? You have $800 a year, maybe you're covered for $1 million. Depending on your age, it could be a lot younger and pay even half of that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's important to have and have it for 20, 30 years. The other permanent policies work a little different, but I want you to reach out to.
I'm reaching out to Kev. I have some questions to Kev. Definitely.
Kevin Spann, and have him answer that. I think that would be awesome. And I'm going to put him on the spot with this podcast.
All right, cool. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because I just looked at the clock and we've been doing this for like an hour.
Oh man, that's because my fault. I keep talking. My bad.
Nah, man. I can talk to you all day, bro. I really can. I can really talk to you all day, and I appreciate your the humbleness that you come with, the information that you're always willing to give to people. You can feel that it's coming from a great space, and that's why I definitely connected with you. This may not be our last podcast together. I would love to do this like quarterly if we could, just to keep people abreast of everything. And
I would love that, man. And I thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I got a lot of respect for you. I respect what you do and how you do it.
Appreciate it.
It was a pleasure chopping it up with you, man.
Pleasure chopping it up with you too, bro. Thanks for being on the first podcast. We didn't name it yet. I'm going to name it soon. I'm thinking just keeping it free game. You know, just giving free game out. I think that's what we're going to name it.
I like that. That's you could run with that.
I think that's where it's going.
Free game with Sean Waller.
I think that's where it's going, bro. I appreciate you, Lou.
Thank you, man.
Peace.
Later.
Later.
Bye.